This is the Hyundai Kona Electric, and it's a small SUV for those who don't want something generic like a Vauxhall Mocha, but want something a bit different, look something a bit more interesting. In this review, we're going to be taking a look around the outside of the car, around the inside, show you off its practicality, and we're also going to take it for a drive to see whether it's any good or not. Welcome to Kona Cars. Right, so starting off with the front of the car then. So as we can see, it's quite a lot different compared to the petrol Kona. So first thing you'll notice is these split headlights. So the daytime running light and the indicator is this little unit up here, whereas the main headlight and the main beam is down here. Kind of similar to what we saw on the Citroen C4 Picasso from a few years ago. And you'll also notice as well here at the front that there's no grille. The front grille has been completely removed, and the Hyundai logo has been moved from here, kind of up to the bonnet. Looks a lot more sleek, and it also reminds me a bit of the Tesla Model 3. Not that that's a bad thing, of course. Moving on to the side of the car now, the main difference is, compared to the petrol and the hybrid Kona, is that they've got rid of the black plastic that surrounded the wheels. Now, this is body coloured, which looks a hell of a lot better, looks a lot less cheap. And once again, it's the same with the side skirts, only this bottom bit here that's been done with plastic. And it's also the same with the rear bit as well. This used to be plastic, now it's body coloured. Now, coming back to the rear, once again, black plastic has been mainly removed and replaced with more body coloured panels. However, something that has stayed with black plastic is this bottom bit here, but has got an all new design which is unique to the electric version of the Kona. And of course, no exhaust pipe, because it's electric, doesn't need one. Rear headlights, once again, like the front ones, are split. So this top unit is your main light, and here at the bottom you have your indicator and your reverse light. And while we're at the back, let's move on to practicality. So, the boot space. Kind of lacking a bit actually compared to its rivals. So it has around 330 litres of boot space with the seats up. And unlike the petrol and the hybrid version of the Kona, you get no underfloor storage. You just get this tray and a bit under here which has a spare cable if you want to charge your car like you're in the medieval times. Now, removing the parcel shelf is nice and easy. You just pull these like that and push it up, and there you go. There is nowhere to put it though, which is a bit of a shame. Now, folding down the rear seats is very easy. Although this is not a very big boot, it does mean that you can fold down the seats right from here. And with them put down, you have around 1,100 litres of boot space. And with that, that makes dragging items to the front a lot easier, because there you go, slides right down, and you'll see there's also no load lip, which means it's easy to put things in and out of the car. Now, I'm going to move on to the rear seats. So, fold the seats up, they're nice and light, so it's not difficult at all today. Alright, so for context, this seat is set to my ideal driving position. I'm 5'9", and as you can see, I have got a reasonable amount of legroom, actually. In fact, I was pleasantly surprised. Headroom it's alright. It could be better. People over 6 foot are going to struggle a bit in the back of this car. However, kids should have no problem at all. Now, you also have this fold down armrest with 2 cup holders in it. Which is great because you don't see that on cars of this level. And now, let's move on to the front seat of this car, the place you're going to want to be, because, well, just take a look at it. In fact, when I first got in this car, I was poised to think it was a Hyundai, because I'd never seen anything like it from the company. I mean, look at all this nice silver trim you have down on the dash. It's all really lovely, and it's a massive improvement compared to brands that just use cheap black plastic or gloss black. It means it's going to get a lot less scratched and, well, look terrible. Now, down here as well, you have all your climate controls, which, look, you can control with a knob, not for a touchscreen. Brands really need to start doing this more. This is so much better. It's a lot easier while you're driving. And while we're moving here in the middle, here's the infotainment system. It is a 10.25-inch screen, and it's reasonably responsive, actually. Does everything you want it to do. It's got, there we go, inbuilt navigation. You've also got the DAB digital radio. And this all comes as standard on all models. As well, does, there it is, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Which, to be honest, I use a lot more in this, and it works a lot better as well because it works with Siri. It means you're doing less while driving. Moving on now to the digital driver's display. Now, once again, like the middle screen, it's a 10.25-inch system. Ignore the fact it says low tire pressure. It's having a bit of a, well, it's having a bit of a session at the moment. It's not actually low. But anyway, don't let that distract you at all. This is a really nice display. It's got great definition. It's really clear display, really easy to get around. And so you got all your driver assist stuff there. This is for the adaptive cruise control, the attention level. You also got this screen here, which tells you all your different drive information you've had from the drive. You've also got an energy flow meter is here, which tells you whether power is going to the batteries or if you're recuperating energy. It's very cool. And of course, you have your regular miles per hour gauge there. Then this section here is where your navigation would go. It tells you different directions and whatnot. But yeah, it's a really, really nice display. Moving on now to storage. So these front door bins, they're not particularly big. In fact, they can't really fit a lot in there. But you can fit a decently sized 1 litre bottle of water down there. You've also got reasonably sized cup holders here, which, well, can't quite fit a big bottle, but you can fit, say, a can of Red Bull or a big cup of Coke you can get from McDonald's or whatnot. Glove box, it's a reasonable size, but it's mainly taken up by, well, all the instruction manuals and service books, so you can ignore that. And while we're still on the subject of storage, check this out down here. You have quite a large storage cubby down here, which you can store different wires and whatnot. And look, you get an extra USB port for your passenger in case they ever need it. But they probably won't, because if we go back up here, you'll have a wireless charging port, which is great, and also an extra USB port, which is where you're going to plug in your Apple CarPlay. Now, there is also one more storage cubby here in the middle, which is full of junk right now, but usually where you can put your keys. Now, that brings me on to 5 good things about Hyundai Kona Electric. Up here, you have, look, a holder for your sunglasses, which is really nicely damp, by the way. Perfect for a summer's day. Here in the rear seat, you have, look, it's a little piece of plastic, which you probably won't think does much, but look at that. It prevents a seatbelt from getting snagged when you fold down the rear seat. This is something that you do not see on many modern cars. The rear windows go all the way down. Something really convenient for those lazy mornings. You can actually turn on the car by using the key. Just press the lock button, press this hold button for a few seconds. You'll hear a little click come from the front, you'll hear the beep that the car has started. Perfect for those who want to heat up the car before they leave for work.
Included in the purchase of all new Hyundais is their BlueLink app, which connects to the car wirelessly and allows the user to control various functions, such as the climate control, the door locks, and also having the ability to send navigation directions straight to the car system. You also get it free for 5 years. Although this car has its positives, it also has its negatives. Here are 5 not so great things about the Kona Electric.
Unlike most electric cars, such as Tesla Model 3, there's no storage underneath the bonnet. Instead, you get something that actually looks a bit like an internal combustion engine. For big phones, such as this iPhone 14 Pro Max, you're probably not going to be able to charge your phone wirelessly because, although it just about fits in, the actual charger is so small it won't even pick up, especially if you have a case on. Unlike one of its main rivals, being the Vauxhall Mokka E, you can't actually have the map here in the instrument cluster. Instead, you just get compass. With considering the fact that this car can cost up to £40,000, some of the plastics used in here are absolutely abysmal. I mean, that feels terrible. And if I do the flick test, ow, really hurts. Although this car does have an auto-hold functionality, you have to turn it on manually every time you start the car. So when you put it in drive, and say you come up to a crossing or a junction, and you let go of the brake, bye-bye! Right, powertrain options. Now, Hyundai have kept it very simple with the Kona Electric, because there's just two. So, this car has the 39 kilowatt hour battery, which produces around 137 horsepower and nearly 400 newton meters of torque, which is actually really impressive. What isn't impressive though is the range. It only does 189 miles. If you want better range, you'll have to go for the 64 kilowatt hour battery, which does have a quite good range, up to 300 miles. And not only that, you also get a more powerful motor, which produces up to 201 horsepower. And in terms of energy efficiency for this car, I average around 4 to or so miles per kilowatt hour, which for an electric car is actually quite impressive. So here we are now behind the wheel of the Kona Electric, and the first thing you notice is just how quiet this thing is. It's such a silent and refined car for the class it's in. You know, this isn't a premium car. It's not a BMW. It's not an Audi. It's not a Mercedes. It's a Hyundai. Yet it's just so quiet in here, and that's not just because of the electric motors, although that does make a huge difference. Sound insulation as well, just the general sound insulation is really, really impressive. You do really notice it. It's such a nice, quiet car to drive around in. And another thing you notice is how light the steering is. And all the controls in general, even the pedals. Everything is so light and easy to use. The steering is probably the lightest steering I've ever felt in a car. You could drive it with one finger. It's that light. Now, don't get me wrong, you should not be doing that. But the point I'm trying to get across is that the steering is really light, and that you will not have a problem with it. It's so easy to drive. Such an easy car to drive. It's brilliant. And like I said, the pedals as well. The pedals are really light. Now, I would admit, I'm not a fan of the fact that the brake pedal is really light. I do wish that was a bit of a heavier pedal, but it's not. It's not the end of the world, but I do wish that the brake pedal was a bit heavier. Now, the main reason why people buy electric cars is because they want to, do something better for the environment. They want something cheaper to run than a petrol or diesel. They want something for the long-term future. But at the same time, people don't really think about that. The main thing that draws people to electric cars is the thing that happens when you put your foot down. Because when you do, you get kicked back into your seat, because all of the power that comes from an electric motor is instant. There's no delay whatsoever. It's like a light switch. It's just there. All 100% of it, it's just there waiting for you, ready. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's there anytime you want it. Now, I will admit, it's quite addicting. You shouldn't do it all the time, but for tricky scenarios such as a busy roundabout, and you want to take a small gap, you can take small gaps in this. Really good for that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, right now I'm driving it through town, and it's just brilliant. You just feel like you can do a bit more in this than you could in an internal combustion engine car. The lack of delay in all the controls, and obviously the power delivery, it's really impressive. And for this car, I think around town, sort of metro areas, is the best place for it to be. And I say that because this car especially, the battery is very, very small. And when you're going at motorway speeds, the battery drains even faster. In fact, the recommended speed to drive an electric car, sort of on a motorway, to conserve the most battery is 60 miles an hour. If you drive at normal motorway speeds, which is 70 miles an hour here in the UK, your battery is going to start plummeting. And you notice that because, say, I sped up to around 70 miles an hour, after about 30 seconds, I reckon I would lose around 3 miles of the range. And slowly but surely, that will keep going and going and going until it goes flat. And so for on the motorway, although this car has a range of 189 miles, I reckon for long distances, I reckon after about 100 miles, the car is probably going to start telling you to go and fill up on battery, because it does drain that quickly. And it drains even faster if you decide to turn the aircon on. If you decide to turn the aircon on, or even worse, the heating, you're going to lose like another 10 or even 20 miles worth of range, depending on sort of what time of the year it is. So say if I go on the motorway in the winter and it's cold, I want to turn the heating on, I'm probably going to lose around 20 to 25 miles of range just to have the heating on, which is crazy. And for me, that's probably the biggest downfall to an electric car. Its range, and the fact that any other kind of controls or systems you use takes up all the battery. That's my only problem. So if you're choosing the smaller battery version of this car, like this one is, the 39 kilowatt hour, don't expect to do long distance journeys. Definitely stick just to town. If you're just buying the car to do the school run, to get the weekly shop, this is perfect. However, if you're doing more long distance journeys, then I would either recommend getting the long range version, the bigger battery, the 64 kilowatt hour, or going for an entirely different car, maybe even spending a bit more and going for a long range version of the Tesla Model 3, which, in all fairness, a Tesla Model 3 long range is probably only about £3,500 more than the top of the range model of this car. But overall, yeah, this car is fantastic. The only thing that it lacks is its motorway performance. Apart from that, it's a really, really, really nice car. It's a brilliant car to drive. I'm really, really impressed with it. So then, what is my overall verdict on Hyundai Kona Electric? Well, despite the fact that it's not very good on the motorway because of its battery drain, it's a brilliant car around town. And if you're looking for a car to just do the school run, take the kids to school, go for a weekly shop, this is the ideal car for you and your small family. Thank you very much for watching.